boost to ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LaTB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back. Episode 162. We got another breakdown, but before all that, how have you been, Lesbo? There's so much going on in the MMA community.
What
in
a
the
crazy
world.
MMA. The week started out just blessed. Hashtag blessed. Blessed era.
Wonderful fight card in the recap. Check it out.
I thought the interviews were good. I have to give tons of credit because I really enjoy the Monday Morning Analyst.
Is that Luke Thomas?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like the little part he does where he stands at the computer. I don't really watch the whole show.
Okay.
But the beginning part where he does certain things with the fights and breaks it down in slow motion and does all that, really enjoyed it.
Interesting. Very B-shabby of you then.
I know, apparently.
It's swinging. But I'll have to check that out because I do give him a chance. I give Luke Thomas a chance, and then I always am like, oh, this is why I don't... He's a good guy.
I was even picking him apart with like my girl side of my brain where I was like, what?
Oh no, studio's
Bad
falling
stuff's
apart.
Going down.
Getting crazy. Luke talking about Luke Thomas in the studio.
I need to back away from that. What were you just talking about? Luke Thomas and his... Oh, yeah. When he used to just have lint all over him all the time and hair, and he just looks really put together now. He looks really...
He's coming along. Huge man. I'm surprised at how big of a person Luke Thomas is. Saw a photo over the weekend of him standing next to B-Shop. He's an inch taller than Brendan Schaub.
How tall is Brennan?
Like 6'1", 6'2"? Luke Thomas is a big guy.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bullet called and he interviewed her.
I did not catch that side of it.
I have to say is different than Ariel. Ariel seems like he's researching his next question or tweeting during his interviews with people. Like he's half there. Luke seems like he's having a genuine conversation. And I was thinking about myself, like if the Bullet called in, would I have a list of questions? Yes. But would I rely on those? No. I think I could rely on her whole weekend and walk through it and ask the questions from it by my memory if I was actually present there. And I think Luke Thomas is way more of a fan from the heart and always did it with love. And that's why he started this whole journey. Whereas Ariel needed a job. And I think it's a difference. It shows.
Interesting point of view.
Yeah, so look at I'm even changing love for Luke Thomas.
Wow. All sorts of stereotypes being broken.
And I like Ariel. Or Chael. Not Ariel. I'm still not Ariel fan.
Bad guy fan as well. Just turning all sorts of heel on the show.
I know, but Chael was acting like,
hat.
who could have seen certain things coming about certain things? And I'm like, if you watch any of us, like, who would have saw this coming? I'm like, Lesbo and the Bean. If you're listening, it's 100%. Like everything that everyone's surprised about, we weren't surprised about. For the Max Holloway fight.
In my crystal phone, I get a lot of good leads that send us in a good way.
How are you?
Good. One of the weird things that happened over in my crystal phone over the weekend in the MMA community that LaTB had to stick to our guns about was the Ian Kidd situation with Bloody Elbow. Weird last name to have when you have pedophilia ties.
Huh, isn't that weird that all of the names of the people that you hear about in the media, like Elefantes, all have their names where they're wrapped up?
Tied in.
Like, child lover.
So Bloody Elbow has officially come out and said that they did not know what was happening. Oh,
but you know that.
They know that by now.
If you're liking and subscribing.
So the Bloody Elbow writer ended up having from 2005 to 2013 X amount of thousands of photos of children in all sorts of lewd and bestiality stuff, which about the animals, I don't necessarily condone that, but it's not as kids, you don't touch kids. It's the unwritten rule of the like. Everybody knows that. Good and bad guys.
And I feel like if somebody can't, or something or someone is voiceless, it's fucked up to fuck it or fuck with it.
True.
So whether it's children or animals or whatever, this motherfucker is fucked up. And John Jones said something about it. This is what we got into like a Twitter war about, because people wanted to bag John Jones for saying this guy was a dirtbag. Like, well, you're a dirtbag too. Oh, we're all dirtbags, all right? Like, do you want to do level of dirtbagsness? Like, be careful of what hill you stand on. And or what is it? Be careful what hill you want to die upon.
Definitely. So these people were sticking up for Kid?
Well, they were just trying to really, like, John Jones doesn't have a right to say anything because he hit a pregnant lady and ran away.
Two completely different things.
That's what I said. What does one have to do with the other?
Yeah, one's talking about being a predator and doing creepy ass shit, and the other one is he paid for his sins. He got caught. I don't condone anything that John Jones did in leaving the scene and breaking a pregnant lady's arm, but hey, that pregnant lady now has a kid that's set up for life.
Yeah, if she was smart with
which John Jones even said, that kid's set for life with the millions of dollars that I had to give her after
But not to get off Ian Kidd.
Right.
So,
deplorable. We don't. Yeah. There's
bloody
no way
elbow,
that
cut
that's okay.
ties, donezo.
Right.
Bloody elbow. It's like no.
All the writers have come out and said that they never knew about it, and they've even at Crooklyn as well as posted her last interactions, which was him just saying that he never officially touched anyone. It was just not okay. Not around here. If you're into that, find another podcast. Not LaTB. No, thank you.
You're at the wrong place.
Just so we know where we stand. But to get into much better, lighter things that have come about in the UFC, Ben Askren has been putting together a game plan that has me tentative to fight. All those guys can fight each other, and if it's between Colby, Kamaru, trust Usman, and Ben Askren tied in there. He just made really good points over the weekend of like how the welterweight division is kind of in a rut right now, and how they're playing against each other negatively in Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman.
Do you agree with Usman, though, that when you really look at it, and I don't like to call anyone cans, but that who has Ben Askren fought to get to fight Usman, where Usman's sitting at like a number 3 dude right now, where why would he want to fight why does he have to fight backward? Who is Ben Askren?
We all know as hardcores, but agreed with that. The level of competition just hasn't been UFC caliber because he hasn't been in the UFC. So the people he fought, the closest fight I've seen with Ben Askren was it a doctor's stoppage disqualification for like eye pokes in championship F1 or something like that in an Asian organization that's no longer around. But that was the most we've seen a striker really get close to beating Ben Askren, and he eats a lot of punches on his way into shots, and it's been against low caliber guys. If I don't want to say Conor, but a Conor-esque striker that's a good counter striker that can land a knee on the way in, Dariush Edson Barboza style, that'll change you. And he's not seen that level of competition. So I think Usman has a good point.
I do too, and Usman gets a lot of hate, but he's paid his dues and crawled his way to the top of his division. He's fought good guys, and not to take anything away from Ben Askren, I don't think Ben Askren should get to fight Colby either. I kind of think he should kind of work his way in exactly where Justin Gaethje did when he came over.
Lawler's a huge step up as well. He's immediately in the top 10 if he beats Lawler. Immediately. What other debut fighters get in there?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And it's a really big name. It's smart if you're Dana White. Like, it's a good matchup. I don't know. I agree. I like Ben Askren. I think I'm excited for him to come over, but if you're trying to make the whole belt and make the division worth something and the rankings worth something, he can't just walk in and fight Usman. So that's my piece.
Did you see, speaking of rankings, actually the updated 125-pound division has been set ablaze as of earlier today with the rankings changing, and it's all murked up. It's all jacked up. Nico Montano is no longer ranked at all in the UFC.
Is she lose her contract?
I haven't seen that officially, but she's off of those rankings. But what really was weird to me was Chukagian just moved up to the 2 spot, and Jessica I moved up to the 8th spot.
The 8th?
Yeah, it makes no sense, but that's the rankings as of today on the UFC ranking
Here's what I'll say.
webpage.
That is such great news for my girl Jessica I.
I think you take third. You beat the third person.
I think it's awesome, but I think she crawls up. But if she can get one more good match in, minimum, maybe two, she just gets longer. It's so much better for her. Bullet, that is not good for her. It's just not good, and she's a big name in the UFC. She's probably the second to third, fourth biggest name in the division. I think it's good to grow her story, let her keep talking shit, build her up. She's fought all the legends.
She's the one herself who has said that she's not going to fight anyone but Bullet now, so she's put herself into a corner. Yeah.
Oh, no.
She did that.
I think she's going to make the same amount of money whoever she's fighting. Why fight the Bullet? Why fight the Bullet? I don't think it's good for her. Her Russian style, if it didn't work against Chukagian...
It did work against Chukagian.
People were like... I didn't think she won.
Barely.
I had but I thought, like, that was close. So, and Chukagian is what, karate-ish? No?
Blonde fight style.
Yeah, so, I don't know. If I'm the I just cash my checks and go to work and fight not the Bullet.
Definitely, I can see that.
Anyone but the Bullet. And is Tatiana Suarez, we were talking about her last show, isn't she in the 115? She's a danger to Rose, not Valentina.
Oh, yes, it is the 115-pound division.
Yeah, okay.
They're all going to move up in and around, though. I could see Suarez easily moving into the 125-pound division because she still is a young enough of a person to just fill out a little bit more in all of the good ways.
One more quick thing and we'll jump
into the card. Go for it.
Did you see, like, there's like a television contract or something with one where, I can't remember what network.
One
Turner.
Championship officially is going to be showed on TNT Turner Network.
Is it?
Yeah, that's officially the
I thought
contract.
it was like Turner Entertainment bought it, but I didn't even know if TNT was still a network.
TNT's picking it up. Exactly. So it is one of the few because Cha Sichertong did say on the Hawani show a few weeks ago, like, oh, it's a company that hasn't had MMA, and we were thinking NBC. All these guys have already had it. Fox, ESPN now, but yeah, TNT, I thought that they were also just a rerun type of show. I didn't know they were coming out with new content. MMA's getting big, huh?
Yeah, other ones.
And it makes more sense all of a sudden if they're going to be shown on TNT that they have Eddie Alvarez, Demetrius Johnson, Sage Northcutt people with names, because when they do air those on TNT, there will be Americans and it just won't be a exclusive Asian versus Asian fighter.
I'm going to say something right now, and it's going to be controversial, but I feel like MMA is kind of the same as comedy and kind of the same as strip clubs. Anyone can fucking fight. Anyone can fucking tell a joke. Anyone can take off their clothes. It's how many people can do it amazingly or good or enough that you'd want to watch it or pay money for it. So I do think we might see a saturation of fight clubs or, fight networks.
Oh, we are seeing them. There's more, and new ones getting built up day by day.
But do you think it's because anyone can fight? Like,
oh, yeah, it is. Anyone can start a podcast.
Yeah, truth. Hashtag truth. Anyone can talk.
Exactly. It's whether you're good enough to have good enough information that other people want to hear. So we know what we're here for. The heavy duty breakdown that we have coming up this Saturday. Another week in a row coming off of a pay-per-view. It's going to be the last Fox card of all time. Maybe not all time. Maybe for the next 10 years because ESPN officially takes over after this. So
I have to say it out loud because I'm going to try to remember. At the 13-minute mark is where, if people don't want to hear us bullshitting.
Good to know. We're going to have to timestamp that.
I'm going to try to timestamp it on things. So, for the hardcores.
But we're going to end up having a Fox Fight Night 31, Lee Iaquinta 2. Where is this out of exactly?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Are they the cheeseheads?
It's out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Oh, that was almost Irish. Yeah, they're the cheeseheads.
Fun fact: Joe Rogan on Michael Bisping had him on the show on the JRE podcast. Did you know that he was actually Irish and Polish? he's known as an English fighter, but his mother has an Irish accent, and he's like, but I'm English because he grew up there. But his heritage, change your mind all of a sudden that he's Polish?
No, because that area is so... No, that kind of... Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't he fight like a Polish fighter?
Tough as nails. But that was a fun little fact that I seemed to squirm in there. Now we get back to the other thing that we have to touch on. Michael Bisping officially is going to be a commentator. He hasn't had the chance under the Contender Series. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And Mr. Jimmy Smith is not getting a renewal. We were here just throwing some heat at Jimmy Smith.
Oh,
and he officially
shit.
did not get picked up for a second season with the UFC as an announcer. So...
Can I tell you what his downfall was? And it's almost not his fault. He was with, Bellator for so long?
Yes.
That... all those fighters. It would be like taking me right now and putting me ringside. No, maybe. I don't know anything about those fighters. If it was stale in the cage, I might be able to prattle on about stuff with UFC guys because I've been watching them fight for so long. But I guess that's his job. He has to do the homework and...
Anik seems to show up, so does
Anik's
Cruz.
been there for so long. All those guys get to watch... Yeah, but it's like... It would be like if you were a Seahawk... And
right.
you would know everything about the Seahawks.
Because he's been there from the start.
Yeah. He
Changed
probably
leagues.
didn't watch. Yeah, he didn't watch the UFC at all. Probably he was so Bellator. He was probably in deep, and I don't know unless he was super unhappy.
Guess where he's going back to? I guarantee you he gets a job again with Bellator.
Do you?
I'm gonna say 75%. You don't agree?
No.
You don't think he goes back to Bellator?
No, and I wonder if
Coker forgives.
Maybe one.
Well, he's got options.
Maybe he'll be working for Golden Boy Entertainment.
For the cupcake herself.
He'll be calling Tito Ortiz versus Chael Sonnen for Golden Boy.
Woo! Burn!
Now I'll have to do the 16-minute mark.
So we get back to the Fox finale fight. Not a finale, but the last Fox fight. All the way to 31. We're going to go from the bottom to the top.
Last Fox fight, De La Roca.
We start off the
Rosa.
night with the heavyweights. 265 pounds. We have Juan Adams versus Chris De La Roca. De La Roca is 5-2. Lost in the UFC twice. Is coming off of his first win in the UFC against Rashad Coulter via TKO ground and pound 6 months ago. Nothing to be proud of. Nothing to be proud of. Beat Coulter, so did Sherman, so did a lot of other guys. It was really the wrestling. It's been the wrestling of De La Roca that's been able to win him fights. He usually tries to get the fight to the ground and then ground and pound you to death. Striking, very limited. Gas tank standing as well, ultra limited. Has power, but all these guys do. And against our number one greatest... See him coming in the heavyweight division. Kragan finally got a fight, and Juan Adams being 4-0. Perfect record so far. He's using his D1 wrestling coming off of that Contender Series, but he gets you to the ground, throws those rabid punches until you can't anymore. His striking's evolving, not the best, but he's a 265er that has to cut, and he naturally looks like a 265-pound Brock Lesnar. Roids, I don't want to say it. He doesn't look like that type of... He just looks like a big prison to me. So, I got the La Roca. I know it's a minus 400 favorite right now. I think it could be minus 500 or 600. Never liked Roca, especially against the prospect that's going to really shine in here. I got Adams everywhere.
Really, I'm going to stay away from this fight. I'm kind of nervous still because as much as I love Adams, he does need to go in there against some UFC caliber guys. Some of the guys he fought have 0 records or losing records. And so I'm going to go Adams KO round 3, but I might speculate on 1 or 2. But I'm just nervous. I'm always nervous.
A little hesitant on the first one. And we had, even though Rakic last week wasn't the first fight of the night when we broke it down, he was the most expensive at 9.5, which Juan Adams is 9,500. He still paid out because that was almost a surefire finish.
But he wasn't even close for the amount he was. A
top.
lot of other fighters got more points for the dollar. 9.5 is so hard to... You almost have to beat somebody up for a whole 4 minutes.
And then finish him.
Yeah, right at the end.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I'm still going to be playing Juan Adams at 9,500 on probably 80% of my cards against Chris De La Rocha's 6,700.
Now that you had time to go back and absorb all of it, did you love what Max Holloway did? Isn't it unbelievable? And
Definitely. I feel like we saw it coming, though. I feel like we were like, okay, this is going to be this is going to be a great fight, but this is going to be Max fight all the way.
Yeah, but I also, is it a great fight if somebody's just a punching bag?
It did show the toughness of Ortega. He did throw a couple good elbows in there as well. He wasn't completely out of it in there. It takes two to tango. It takes two to tango.
He had the most amount of 190 strikes hit on him in one round. Take that in. 190 strikes in one round absorbed.
That's unreal numbers. Max Holloway also breaking the record for the most strikes ever in general.
Ever.
And he's the only person under 31 on the champions board right now.
He's not even 27. In his prime.
Yeah. Amazing stuff we're going to be seeing from that entire division.
Anyway, sorry.
So, how much are you going to play De La Rocha in your DraftKings lineup?
0.
Moving on then to the door opening. I don't know if you can hear that. We have Zach Cummings coming in against Trevor Smith at 185 pounds. This has a slot fest written all over it for me. I have been a big time hater of Trevor Smith for a while here at 15-8. He just 37 years old, relies on his wrestling, and his wrestling isn't really that good. He has power in his strikes, but his strikes really devolve going in out of that first round as well. Smith is all heart, but technically and athletically at times, he just gets overwhelmed. Zach Cummings is definitely a guy who likes to overwhelm people, who, with a 21-6 record, I thought was a good underdog in there, especially against people like Prajeres at 170 pounds. But Zach Cummings is now moving up, and he's never really looked like he's that muscly. He tends to grind you more than anything, use his wrestling. He has gotten out-wrestled by Prajeres, but I don't think Trevor Smith can match that. I think that this is just a wrestling type of a fight. This is just going to be reversals on the ground. I got Cummings in a decision, but I don't really think I'm going to highlight this on my DraftKings regardless of the prices. It just seems like it's going to be a decision wrestling grappling match. How do you feel this fight goes down?
I feel like you said it all. The only thing I could add to that is if Trevor Smith is cheap enough because of how
inflated.
Yeah, I don't think Zach is going to finish it, and I do think there'll be a lot of reversals. Yeah, I agree with you.
At 9,100 for Zach Cummings against 7,100, the minus 300 favorite Cummings. A lot of people, I think, see... Again, Trevor Smith tends to grind people wrestling, and that's what
they're like
Cummings
the same fight. Like the whole time you're going to be looking at the bottom and being like, oh, Zach Cummings is in red tight pants and Trevor Smith is in blue loose pants. You're going to have to keep looking at the bottom of the screen to see who's who.
The interesting thing here is Zach Cummings' chin hasn't been looking good of late, and I can say the same about Trevor Smith here.
They're the same.
Like their chins are starting to wobble.
Everything about it. There's nothing I can say about one without saying it about the other, except that I feel like Zach Cummings might be the better grinder. Totally. And I don't know if I'd highlight Trevor Smith anywhere, but that's it I'll say about Zach Cummings. He's like a good grinder. But I don't see him submitting Trevor Smith the same way he can everyone else, because Trevor Smith's not a walkthrough. He's always like, I've gotten him a few times with a sneaky underdog.
And he is. I mean, he's all hard in there. He doesn't quit. He does not quit.
Yeah, I have Cummings' decision as well, but I could go with... I'm not going to put Zach Cummings anywhere. I have Cummings' decision, but I'm not going to put him anywhere. Trevor Smith, maybe as like a little... Wager gauger,
7,100. I could kind of see that play, especially in the decision. But I think there's going to be other spots as well, potentially, that we can highlight some fun stuff in here. Moving on to the 205ers, light heavyweight, we have Adam Milstead versus Mike Rodriguez. The 8-2 Milstead's coming off of a loss in the UFC to Jordan Johnson in a split decision 9 months ago. Prior to that, it was cut over Blades' injury. It was turned over. I don't know why. I think Blades popped on weed for that. Prior to that, Milstead does have a win over De La Roca via TKO. Mike Rodriguez coming off of the Contender Series and losing his first fight in the UFC in a decision to Devin Clark. Devin Clark beat you 8 months ago. We know what we get out of Devin Clark, somebody who's a one-round type of guy. Rodriguez gets hurt striking a lot in there. His hands tend to be low. He does throw hard strikes fast down the pipe, but if he starts to get outworked, out-wrestled, he can get held in position, and that's how Clark got him. He just held him, laid on top of him for the entire fight, and Milstead likes to do that. Milstead tends to be a wrestler in there. Rodriguez is super flashy, throws tons of flying knees, really low left hand, but he throws it with power. Deontay Wilder-esque. He's a tall guy in there. Milstead is a type of grinder who'll take it down and make it boring. The flash knockout potential here is Rodriguez all day, but if that knee or uppercut doesn't land, Milstead's got a decision in a wrestling match here. I got Milstead decision. I'm going to probably end up staying away from this one.
It's so funny you said that. I don't even want to pick it on my Tapology. I'm going to stay so far away from it. I'm not even going to pick it on my Tapology.
Is there a play, though, in Rodriguez at 7,500 on DraftKings? Because if there's a finish in this fight for me, I feel like it's Rodriguez with that KO. Milstead, yeah, he tends to wrestle, not go for the submissions as much. Milstead being 8,700, I don't think I play Milstead anywhere. If anything, again, that gauge your spot just because of the flash potential of a finish here.
I have Milstead decision as well, but
8,700, nowhere.
I stick with what I know, and I am not putting any of them anywhere.
Moving on to the 145ers, we have Dan Ige versus Jordan Griffin. Dan Ige being 9-2, coming in and winning his last fight against Mike Santiago in a TKO. Prior to that, he lost his debut against Julio Arce in a decision, but he also has some Contender Series alum. He is a Contender Series alum, and he's welcoming the debuting Jordan Griffin, coming off of that LFA scene, winning a submission versus Mike Marshall in the Contender Series fight. Jordan Griffin likes to get it to the ground, uses wrestling to get there, has a heavy guillotine. Guys will shoot it on him, and he'll snatch it up and put a lot of weight in it. At 17-5, the 28-year-old has coming out of that Rufus Sport fight team, so he's training with a lot of badasses. Is that in Chicago with Andy Pettis?
I think you're right.
So he's training with a lot of
Milwaukee. Is it Anthony Pettis out of Milwaukee?
And so is Jordan Griffin out of Wisconsin.
Okay.
We are on board here. He's a profile local fighter against the Extreme Couture Vegas guy in Dan Ige. But Ige, well-rounded 9-2. That Julio Arce loss doesn't look so bad. I believe it might have been a little shorter notice as well. Dan Ige on the ground is a beast. Striking is getting way, way better. Gas tank has held its own so far in there. And against Griffin, this is a huge step up. He's not getting a chump in here. He's coming up. These Contender Series fight, there's very rarely have we seen them come into the UFC and really show out. Mike Santiago, a guy who Ige just beat as of late, exact same. I bet on Santiago thinking he was going to be better than he was. Obviously not, but I get the more check marks here to Ige. I'm going to go with Ige. Submission round number 3. I think both of these guys wear on each other. It's a grappling match for most of the time. Ige has a little higher clip on takedowns. Gotta watch out for that guillotine, but I got the veteran here. Submission round number 3. Who do you have in this fight?
Isn't it weird to call him the veteran and he's a year and a half younger? I know, but that's
True.
Jordan Griffin's going against great competition, and they're all right in his weight bracket. He has both brothers on either side of him. If that's the case, then he's at Milwaukee at the Rufus Sport. I think this is going to go to decision as well for Ige. Is it Ige? Ige. But Jordan Griffin, how much is he? Because he could be a really good underdog pick.
On DraftKings, he's 7,700.
I think this could be an interesting match. He could probably take punches, and he has a killer ground game.
Plus 145 for the underdog in Griffin. I don't think you're wrong in that. At 8,500 for Ige, he has to pretty much finish as well. That's super steep in a closer fight. He is the minus 180 favorite right now, but I think it is a closer fight than people are leading to believe. I could be more comfortable at a minus 145 Ige, but 2-1 odds. Jordan Griffin has a real shot in here. He has top level competition in there that he has been working with.
I have Ige decision, but I could change it. I could see how like the cardio of UFC caliber cardio could be the and if Jordan Griffin only knows how to submit, how well can he take punches if somebody keeps getting off the ground with him? And Ige's a smart fighter, so
Baby Pettis is on the night, so they have the same training camp getting ready for this. Just throwing that out there.
You know how we like to say if one Pettis goes down, the other one falls down right behind him?
Is this
same? That curse?
Well, they're brothers and training partners. A bit of a difference.
I don't know. Is it? Because if Jordan Griffin's a training partner, if he loses tonight, does it just set off a bad spin? Just something to think about for later on in the night.
I like it. I like it throwing a little bit of different stuff in there, but maybe the betting on that one is over 2.5 minutes for Ige versus Griffin. Then we go back to the 85ers with Jack Hermansson versus Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert coming in with a 28-9, being the death metal Nordic god that he is. At 30 years old, he's fighting out of Wisconsin. He's out of the Aguilar Combative Systems. Don't really know anyone else out of that fighting system, but
Jessica. I don't think so.
I would have said Christina myself. But Meerschaert's definitely come in and done well in the UFC. Beating Eric Spicey on the ground, beating Pichota, who was a big up-and-comer submission 5 months ago, only getting a loss in there against Thiago Santos TKO, which a lot of people aren't taking that fight regardless. Meerschaert's really overperformed, and he's got a good ground game, heavy punches, a hell of a chin on him. I feel like with that Nordic beard, I've seen that dude take bombs, and other guys be like, holy shit, only Maheta with that nasty power was able to get him out of there. A lot of other guys literally gas punching this guy at times.
He had to literally be hit with a hammer.
Yeah, exactly. Jack Hermansson coming off of a 17-4 record, being high level competition, being a kickboxer with good jiu-jitsu, coming off of a win in the third round against Talis Leites 6 months ago. Prior to that, also losing to Maheta in a TKO. They have a shared opponent there. But Hermansson's beat people like Brad Scott, Alex Nicolau. Definitely likes to keep the fight striking. The Swedish fighter is fighting out of Frontline Academy. Don't know where that's out of. But Hermansson, what I really liked about that latest fight is that he was getting torn apart on the ground the first 2 rounds. Broke a rib in there in the third round. And his corner was like, you're losing. You got to finish him. He came out and gave it his all. Latest couldn't keep up and was finished in there. What I don't like about that last fight, even though it showed a lot of ton of heart, is that I've had rib injuries, and 6 months just doesn't feel like that long of a time for a rib injury, especially if it broke.
Oh, that's a good point.
I've had a rib injury, and it took a while, and I didn't feel good for a while, and mine didn't never break. It just fractured down the side instead of in half, which he supposedly had some sort of actual literal break in there. So on the ground, Gerald Meerschaert can put in a heavy-duty switch, literally a switch. I've known that to take out more people than people think because it really torques your body.
Ugh, and then makes my bell hurt.
Something weird happened, but
or even a crossbody with the leg.
Yeah, a figure 4 around the body. So I'm gonna still go with Hermansson. I think he's better striking-wise, and his gas tanks look good enough to, on the feet, be able to pick apart Meerschaert to go into a decision. But I like a late-round finish, especially if Hermansson can. In the third round, regardless, just go out there and try to finish a fight. He'll beat a lot of guys that way. This is a fun one. I'm actually excited for this fight. I got Hermansson TKO round number 3. Who do you have for this fight?
I'm going to pick Meerschaert as a sneaky little underdog pick here.
All right.
I think that it's funny because he actually technically knocked out Eric Spicely with a body kick. And if Jack Hermansson has an effed up rib, what a perfect way to get that done. And maybe it doesn't finish it, but maybe a submission in round 2 after that kick will. I really like both guys here. This is a really weird one for me. These are two guys I'm a huge fan of that I've liked them both coming up. I've picked them both as sneaky underdogs, and I could see myself at weigh-ins switching to Jack Hermansson. But right now, I'm going to go with the local.
The transplanted local.
Well, kind of. They're just right across, that Wisconsin, Minnesota. It's like so close.
Oh no, I'm saying because he's like a metal. Mearshart is actually from like Norway. He's been in the States for like 2 or 3 years now.
Oh no, I'm going. Oh yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
8,800 for Hermanson, the favorite, at minus 240 against the underdog plus 185. Mearshart 7,400. I don't think it's a bad play. Mearshart has a real shot in here, and I'm really excited for this fight. I could see myself giving myself a little exposure, especially for that 7-4.
This is a sneaky fight of the night.
This is a sneaky fight of the night. It is a little steep for me for 8,800 on Hermanson on maybe a finish in the late rounds. I like what you're saying here for Mearshart. I don't think you're crazy. Moving on to 155 pounds.
And I feel like you could also listen back. I don't know if I've ever picked against
I agree
Mearshart.
with that. I feel like you've always been on Mearshart's bandwagon, and it's worked out most of the time.
Yeah, except against Maheta.
Which, hey, you can't fault him for that. So did Hermanson, so it is what it is.
I feel like I've always been with Jack Hermanson as well.
Ooh, push comes to shove. You go with the Mearshart.
Yeah, Mearshart.
155 pounds. We have Jared Gordon coming in against Joaquim Silva. Silva being 10-1, even though he has 2 losses that I can see directly on here. I guess one of them was out of the Latin America show or one of those Contender Series fights.
Oh, where it didn't matter.
Exactly. The Ultimate Fighter. Since then, Silva has come back and won 3 straight in the UFC, beating Andrew Holbrook, Renzo Madadi, and getting his first loss in the UFC. Unanimous decision to Vince Pichel from hell himself. Jared Gordon being 14-2, coming off of his first loss in the UFC, second loss ever against Diego Ferreira, which we just see get a highlight finish. He also finished Jared Gordon via TKO 9 months ago. The caveat that I have to say that I don't like, but it did play a factor, was after this fight, Jared Gordon posted a video showing of, was it 3-4 weeks before the fight, he had ended up getting in a street fight with some thugs and a window crashed on his hand and he had stitches and still has nerve damage to this day from it.
Oh,
took a fight on like 4 weeks notice and lost to Ferreira because he was going in with one hand. I really like the tenacity, but then there's you're too headstrong for your own good, and he'll put himself in a compromised position and lose a fight instead of just saying, man, you got to give me another 6 months. My hand's ruined. And here's why. He had real proof, but instead he could have a slip disc and go in there and just flop against Silva, who is a tough fight regardless of who you're going in there with. Silva has shown us a lot of really good stuff in there. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on point against the wrestler Gordon, who likes to keep a high pace, who has the highest strike output of the entire night amongst all fighters. Gordon likes to get you up against the fence, throw rapid punches until you can't keep up anymore. Silva, that's what Vince Pichel did, and it can happen again just because Gordon ties into that exact Pichel timeline. But I just don't like these guys that are too tough for their own good. So anytime I see Gordon in there, I'm always going to have to take a step back. I do have Gordon winning the decision. I'm just not going to be surprised if he's like, oh, well, I slipped 2 vertebrae and I couldn't shit for a week before that fight, but I decided to take it anyways because he has risen from the dead, as you'll hear this fight card, because he died on opioids and came back, so he knows how to use a diaper. Who do you have next? Or who do you have in this fight?
I think this is going to be a dirty split, and I actually have it going for Silva. I don't know if I'm in love with Gordon anymore.
I agree with that.
But I'm going to stay far, far away from this fight, in all honesty. I don't know what I like. Neither guy's a standout to me right now. And so I'm going to stay away from it.
At 29 for Silva and 30 for Gordon, they still, early in their UFC careers, they're still filling out.
My new Jackson Wink is Gracie Academies. Oh, they're at the Gracies. Like, I'm always ride or die 10th planet and anti. It's like...
Lesbo's trying to bring some heat out of herself. I'm telling you, if those Gracies find out, they bring it, and they started this thing, and they like to let you know that they started the jiu-jitsu scene. But I like what you're saying. 10th planet, systems, all day. Eddie Brach. So, the big underdog in plus 170, Joaquin Silva, 7,600 for Lesbo against 8,600 on DraftKings. Jared Gordon, the minus 215 favorite. I don't think it's a bad call. Again, Gordon, his own worst enemy, as what we've seen throughout his life so far.
Do I like Pitchell? I think Pitchell's all right, right? He's an all right guy to go to decision with.
Pichel for sure.
Pichel,
yeah, for sure. Pichel puts a great grinding pace that Gordon can emulate as well. So the fact that Pichel didn't finish Joaquin in there, it was 30-27, but that wrestling hopefully gets better because he's going to need
There's
it.
some sneaky fights. I haven't even looked at this card yet.
Oh, interesting. Really excited for this next one coming up at 155 pounds. We have Drakkar Klose versus Bobby Green. And Bobby Green being 24-8, getting his first win in a while in there against... Who was that as of late? Eric Koch, unanimous decision. Prior to that, he had a draw with freaking Venata. Came off of a 3-fight losing streak to Hope, Masvidal, Poirier, losing in a TKO. But Bobby Green, perennial UFC gatekeeper. A top 10 gatekeeper, I would say, even though I don't think he's ranked. He's ranked 32nd. Okay. UFC gatekeeper, but... Bobby Green is one of those guys that I'll say it every single time. He fights to the level of his opponent, and that gets him stuck in dirty-ass split decisions all the time. Good boxer, uses his Philly shell as good as anybody in there. Good footwork, good gas tank. Good counter wrestling. Doesn't really shoot all that much, and his shots aren't the best, even though he has some wrestling credentials. But Bobby Green will lose a fight by talking shit instead of throwing punches at times, and he can get lulled into the showmanship aspect where he's more busy being like, nah, that didn't hit me, dog. That didn't hit me, instead of throwing 2 punches. So he makes it for a dirty split decision. And Drakkar Klose, that's the name of this man's game. He gets into dirty splits all day, and he comes out on top more often than not. Coming off of a win as of late, the 9-1 30-year-old has really made a good, strong showing in the UFC, beating Venata, who Bobby Green drew with, in a decision, using that wrestling nonstop, losing to Dave Tamura in a decision, but beating Daikesi, beating Powell, beating... Who was the other big... well,
Dustin Poirier?
Those are the 4. He didn't beat Poirier. That was Green who lost to Poirier.
Sorry.
But either way, Klose uses his wrestling. Coming out of the MMA lab, the Portland scene, they got or Arizona scene? Glendale, Arizona. Well, he's coming out of the MMA lab. Bunch of dogs out of there. Good game plan out of those lab guys as well. They always really have good game plans. They get their guys in shape. And I think this is more of a changing of the guard, even though 32 years old for Bobby Green isn't... He's 2 years older than Klose. But Klose is that new wave where Bobby Green's that staple old guard to me. He hasn't really changed much. He just also had knee problems with Green. So I got a decision. Dirty-ass split. It's going to be close. You know who I got there.
It's going to be close. It's close. I got close. I totally agree with you in everything. I think Klose is going to be the local guy. He's going to have a lot of fans in the crowd. And I think that Bobby Green is a sneaky person, though, to put on your cards for cheap if Klose is a heavy favorite. I don't know what the over-under is on it.
So the betting lines plus 310 for Klose against the plus 235.
I don't see a finish. So I think Bobby
that.
Green could be somebody you put on your little Draftkings cards to afford everyone expensive.
I would agree with that 100%. If you're going to make a bet, it's the over 2.5 rounds. I don't see a finish at all in there. 9,300 for Drakkar Klose on DraftKings against the 6,900 Bobby Green. Bobby Green, low output. Definitely not going to play Bobby Green there at all. I don't think Klose as well for a decision fight. I'm going to put him in much situations because Green does have good takedown defense. So this is going to be a clinch battle to me. Going to be a close one. On to the 25ers. We have Jessie Rose Clark coming in against Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee being 9-2, coming off of her first loss in the UFC. I mean, at home against her husband a few months ago. Unfortunately, I don't mean to make light of it, but her husband did get trumped up.
Did you know she's fighting on the same card as Ostovich? Oh, no, she's not.
She's not.
I know, but would it be the same amount of heat if she were?
With Dan Hardy or
Yeah,
Greg Hardy,
I'm just like,
Greg Hardy, and not Dan.
And you know what I have to say about that episode? Off topic, real quick. I didn't know that her boyfriend wasn't Greg Hardy. I forgot Greg Hardy was the football player that was all the hoopla that was coming over.
Interesting.
I thought they were like, you were like, oh, and the UFC just signed her husband or the guy that hit her.
Oh,
and I
no.
was like, oh, well, maybe nothing went down then. Yeah, I
Weird.
really didn't even know. I'm like, oh, when I heard it later, I'm like, I didn't know her husband's name was Greg Hardy. And then when I saw Greg Hardy's stories, I was like, oh, that's the football player they're talking about.
Yeah, the humongous athlete.
Yeah.
Completely
So
not
I was like
little
talking
Hawaii.
about something totally different, but I guess you really couldn't tell. I listened back to the show and I'm like, oh, well.
Nope, you just outed yourself.
Whatever.
There. So, Andrea Lee has had a fight in the UFC, but she had to take a little break off of the Invicta scene due to popping on steroids. She also coughed up to it, only took a couple months off, and has good cardio, tends to be a striker. KGB Lee was dubbed on her by her former husband. I don't know if they're in divorce now, but he just thought that she looked Russian, even though she's of Polish descent. American girl, American bred. Doesn't even like cowboy hats and stuff. She just wears it as a gimmick. So Andrea Lee tends to point fight in her fights and win point fights. Got a good takedown defense. Spams a lot of punches and kicks. Connects pretty well and can get tagged a little more than I like in there. Against Jessie Jess, the 9-5 fighter, she's really had a fan resurgence, getting all sorts of love from everywhere. Losing 5 months ago to Jessica I. Feel like we might have called that one right here on that B as well. But Jessie Jess still rough 31-year-old fighter. Also domestic abuse survivor.
Whoa.
Out of Australia. Who wins here? She actually, one of her biggest stories coming out of Australia is her boyfriend, who was an MMA fighter, beat her up and she actually beat his ass and they both got charges on him. That was her claim to fame back in the day.
So at least she
matched
won
up.
her fight.
Right, there you go. This is
horrible.
bad. This is horrible.
horrible.
This is horrible.
This is not the hill I want to die on.
So I do feel like this stays up. Striking.
We're going to have to put one of those numbers at the beginning of our podcast.
This is going to have to be an XXX rated freaking podcast. Like,
yeah, not for the sensitive.
yeah. All you 12-year-olds, you need to skip this one.
What do they call it when you're triggered? Like, this is going to be
Trigger
like
warning. A trigger warning. Ready.
So then I might as
Breakdown.
well just say it. I wonder if Andrea Lee colluded with Trump.
Mind blown.
Boom,
Mind blown. So I got Lee in a
Stupid.
decision. This is not going to be the funnest fight of the night. I don't think. Rose Clark moves forward with her head on the line as well. Doesn't have great head movement. Andrea Lee can pivot off there, land 2 punches on the way out. I got Lee decision. I don't know if I even play this much at all on my DraftKings. I don't think I am. At 9,200 for the favorite against a 7,000 Clark underdog.
I'm going to stay far, far away from this fight, but I'm going to go with Clark decision. I just feel like her caliber that she's gone against is way better than the caliber that Andrea Lee's gone against. And that fight against, I thought Jessica Rose Clark was on her way up, but I don't think she's better than Jessica I right now. And you guys all know how I feel about Jessica I right now. So it's like, she's like second to the bullet. She just doesn't need to be fighting the bullet right now.
She's just ranked 8th. Makes no damn sense.
Yeah, so Jessie Jess, what is it? What's Andrea Lee done?
Yeah, very true. She's only come in and beat a...
Do you think she's going to submit? No.
No.
I even think, yeah, Jessica Rose Clark decision. I think this is going to be
Dirty split.
yeah, dirty split fight.
Dirty split.
And I could switch to Andrea Lee. This one, it will be entirely on weigh-ins and what I think of them going into that.
Again, 9,000.
And the stare down. I feel like this could be an ugly stare down where they hit or push or
Yep.
whoever. So, yeah.
9-2 for Andrea Lee. 9,200 on DraftKings. A little too steep. Limited exposure on this. If I have any exposure at all. I think we have other spots on the night to make more money. Then we move to the profile preliminary fight on, I think it's already FS1. I feel like we only had 4 fights on the Fight Pass.
Check your local listings.
At 170 pounds, we have Dwight Grant coming in against Zach Otto. Grant debuting in the UFC off of the Contender Series. 8-1. Grant has all sorts of hype coming out of the Kickboxing Academy. Zach Otto, been a grinder, 16-6 fighter, win one, lose one in the UFC for a while. Just last loss 4 months ago to Sage Northcutt, TKO Hammer Fists. The 31-year-old has got a couple wins over Mike Pyle, He lost to Jean Liang, beat Kuchikoto, and Sergio Moraes beat him in a split decision as of late. But Otto uses his grinding, limited striking. Chin has started to be a little suspect for Otto at 170 pounds. I don't know if it's the weight cut or just a long career of fighting. But Otto, jack of all trades, master of none. He'll overwhelm you later on in the rounds. His gas tank is okay. It doesn't really stick out all that much. But from what we've seen with Grant, good wrestling, great striking, good takedown defense as well. And 4 months ago, if Sage Northcutt can do it, I feel like a lot of people see Grant being able to do it, as do I. I have Grant in a TKO round number 2. I think Otto holds on valiantly for the whole first round, but once Grant gets back up a couple times, Otto's just going to be on his way out of there. Round number 2, TKO. Grant, who do you have in this fight?
Same.
Round number 2?
Yep.
Wow. For the favorite.
Same. I think they even give Zach Otto to people when they're like, man, we need a knockout right at the end so people tune into the main card.
I could see that being a profile fight for them to be able to definitely look good, make him a highlight reel for all the wrong reasons. At 9,400 for debuting Grant against 6,800 for experienced Otto. This is a tough one as well. I feel like for not 1,000 more, you can get the Kragen and Pena, or Adams, I mean, and that's a guaranteed finish. This one, I could see Otto hold on to a decision loss, just because Grant is getting a lot of hype here, and we've seen it before. You can't get me again. And these contender series guys,
I just feel like if Sage can take you down.
Good point. Good, yeah, I feel like that does play heavy into it. But we open up the main card with a number 2, just like the main event. But if you haven't liked and subscribed, remember, on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, so much. YouTube, we're getting there on YouTube. But it's all free. Free bet picks coming out this week as well. I'll end up having 1 or 2. It's going to probably be prop bets because for me, it's really hard to find underdogs that I've really, really liked throughout the night.
Oh my gosh.
Hasn't it been?
No, I feel like I have so many.
Woo! It could be a good or a bad one. We're split up on a couple of these. But number 2, we have Charles Oliveira versus Jim Miller. The first time around, Oliveira ended up getting the job done against Jim Miller, submitting him. Miller getting a submission win as of late with a 29-12 record against Alex White 3 months ago. Miller just being a perennial tough man in there, perennial top 15 guy. Really on the latter stages of his career at 35 years old. With Oliveira, he's been in it for a long time at 29 years old with a 24-8 record. It's been UFC high level for a long time now. And you know what we always say about Oliveira. He quits in there. He doesn't have the best gas tank, but he will submit you or strike you apart for the first round, if not second. It's just little adversity, and he's out of there. Fortunately for him in here, Jim Miller can't take the amount of abuse as he used to. Alex White, still tentative on that guy. Not the type of fighter that Oliveira is, and I see why Oliveira is such a big favorite. I think he does a lot of more of the same of what he did before, if not more decisively. It's just Miller is slowed down everywhere. His shots, takedowns, grinding. Even his gas tank, Jim Miller's gas tank's really faltered as of late. I got Oliveira everywhere here, but I got to be tentative on it because it takes one punch and Oliveira will give up that submission, if not TKO, for a throat injury. Who do you have in this fight? Oliveira, decision.
I think Jim Miller only loses to the best of the best, and I think Charles Oliveira is good, but I don't think he's the best of the best. I don't think that Charles Oliveira is just going to be able to snatch up Jim Miller. Jim Miller has a serviceable enough ground game to not get caught up in those same submissions that these other dudes that, have been. Kind of what Paul Felder did. I feel like Jim Miller has okay hands on the stand-up, and he's not afraid to get bloody, and he will go with decision. And the number one thing I was thinking about Charles Oliveira is, like you were saying, a little adversity, and he has quit in his heart. I feel like who is a little adversity if not Jim Miller?
It's a good call.
So I am going to go with Miller KO round 3,
Woo!
if not late round 2.
I love that bet. I could see myself throwing a flyer up there as well. Little disrespect coming, but it's because they have fought each other before. So I think that's playing heavy into it. And Oliveira, as of late, has looked better than normal at 8,900.
Oh my gosh, how long ago did they fight each other?
Yeah, I think it was a few years ago. These guys have been in it for a while. Against Jim Miller, 7,300. Big underdog for Lesbo at plus 215. I got the favorite in a decision. I see the over prop line as well, probably being the best to cash here, but no value in Oliveira for that much of a favorite against, as you're saying, a notoriously tough Jim Miller. Moving on to the 135 pounders, we have baby Sergio Pettis versus Rob Font in a profile fight of the night. This is a fan favorite.
Charles Oliveira has looked so good his last 2 fights.
Definitely, and Miller's not looked good. I guess that white fight definitely looked better than.
But it was against
Alex White, the gasoline boy.
Clay Guida that Charles Oliveira looks so good against.
And I think Clay Guida and Jim Miller are in the same boatish.
I got Jim Miller a little above Clay Guida.
I'd agree with that. I don't think.
And Daniel Hooker, Merker. I think he's like fight. One of the guys that's all the guys. Dustin Poirier, Anthony Pettis is in the top 5. Trinaldo, juice to the tits. Oh yeah, and Poirier. He's easily in the top 4 guys in the division right now. So yeah, okay. I'm sticking with Miller. I was like, oh, that's such a big underdog.
Yeah, it's a big You're right though. You have really good points on that. At the 35ers though, baby Pettis, the local boy, coming in against Rob Font out of the Lausanne fight team. Font at 31 years old is 15-4, only lost in the UFC to Rafael Assunção in a decision, Pedro Munoz via submission, but had wins over Thomas Alameda, where the Bean made some money on an underdog, as well as beating Douglas Andrade, which isn't an easy bout in there as a submission. Rob Font has been spotty, lost the guys he should lose to, beat guys that he shouldn't beat either, with Andrade and a freaking other good win in there against Alameda. Rob Font on the ground, super sneaky, long for the division at 135. Good boxer with a straight right that hurts people and puts them down. He's gotten his submissions usually off of that right when he hurts them. Good fight IQ for Font in there. Good footwork. And I was just seeing the profile over the weekend. He drives 2 hours to training camp, 4 hours a day in the car just to go train with Lausanne, back up to New York where he works a day job. But every time we've seen that over a long career, it does not work out. These guys got to be 100% committed, and Font's been one of the few guys that apparently has been doing it, even though his job, I don't remember what it is. He says it doesn't affect them as much, but 4 hours out of your day you kill just in the car. Just in the car to train hard and then get back. I just a point that they were admiring on the show, and I'm like, I don't see that as good. I see that as a detriment potentially.
I bet you TJ, all the guys that train in California, anywhere, they're used to it. Shit.
They're used to it in there. Against a 25-year-old Rufus Sport local, we're going to get a big pop from the crowd. We're going to have Anthony Pettis in the crowd. If not the corner, we know how good of a corner Anthony Pettis can be as of late. Ask his cousin how good of a corner Anthony Pettis can be. But baby Pettis has really started to show that he's his own Pettis. He's a striker, good ground game, good submission defense.
He's his very own Pettis.
He's actually potentially better onto the feet than his brother was. Not as much power, but will fight you to death. And I see the better traps set up here by Sergio Pettis. I see the better cardio here by Pettis, and I only give really the power to Rob Font. I see that this line is super, super off and almost a minus 180 favorite in Rob Font 2-1. I think Pettis actually wins a dirty-ass split decision here. I feel like on the ground he can hold his own, and I know what people have been saying. Pettis can't take a punch like most other, and Rob Font hits hard. Agreed. It's all... Benoit did it to Pettis in the lucky... I think Pettis learned from that. I got a big underdog here. Give me baby Pettis in a controversial split decision. Who do you have in this fight?
If it goes down to a controversial split, they could easily give it to the local guy, just like you're saying. He is right from Milwaukee. I'm going to go with Font here, though. I just don't see the competition level being there for Sergio Pettis where he wins. And everyone will say Joey Benavidez, but I think
Controversial.
Joey Benavidez is on his way out. I know everyone is like, wah! I just think I think he's seen better days. I do think there's going to be fights in there for Pettis with some of these 125ers stepping up. I just think Rob Font's one of the best guys in the division. I think the line, nope, slight underdog's about right with me. I think, in my opinion, the line's right. I think Rob Font can hurt him and then submit him, but I do think Pettis should have all the tools. But the little lean that I have is that the first guy in the camp lost. All the Rufus Sport guys are going to lose tonight. Font decision.
8,400 on DraftKings for Font against 7,800 for Sergio Pettis. I'm going to be playing some Pettis here and Font. I think I could, but not on stacking them. One or the other. And I'm only going to expose myself like 50% to this fight. Not everywhere. But this is a fun one. I see this being a profile fight.
You keep waiting for Baby Pettis to bust badge. You're like, he's going to be the Pettis.
He's going to be the better one. He's going to be the better one. Definitely. So to the co-main event we go. We go to the 155-pounders where another profile fight. This Fox and the Fight Night people have been also shitting on like the pay-per-view. I don't understand why. There's so many Fight of the Night potentials that we've talked about so far, and this is right up there with Edson Barboza versus Daniel, the Hangman Hooker. Barboza being 18-6, perennial top 5 guy, gotten 2 losses in a row as of late. Doesn't really happen for Edson Barboza, but against Khabib and Kevin Lee, who's in the next bout, 2 of the best wrestlers in the entire division. That's one of Edson Barboza's number 1 kryptonite, and Daniel Hooker likes to strike exactly like Edson. Well, not exactly like him, but they're both strikers. The Hangman is 17-7, getting only 1 loss in the UFC, maybe 2, but that was earlier in his career against Jason Knight. Now that he's moved up 10 pounds from 145, we've really seen Hooker and that entire Adesanya fight team, who is a Volkanovski out of there. Those guys are good strikers, good takedown defense, nasty knees and elbows, great clinch, good cardio, and they're really just piecing people apart. Daniel Hooker has a win over Gilbert Burns. He also has a win over Miller, beating Pearson as well. Edson Barboza, definitely the right way up from his last fight. I think this is a perfect fight for Dan Hooker, and this is a striker's delight. I am so excited for this battle. This is one we're going to come back and see win or loss for either fighter. It's going to be a great show when both of these guys move forward. And to me, this is another line that's off. I do see it being a coin flip, and I actually am going to side with Edson Barboza here. I don't think Daniel Hooker can get him to the ground, which if you can't get Barboza to the ground and really start to wear him out, he'll win a point fight against you. Daniel Hooker has a great clinch, but so does the Muay Thai striker, 9-year-old freaking Edson Barboza. This is a profile fight. I could, again, flip a coin everywhere, but give me whoever's the underdog here, I'm going to pick. Right now, it's Edson Barboza. I got Edson Barboza. Must watch TV. Must watch. This is a fun one. Who do you have in this fight?
I think you're dead on with this being one of the best. This could be one of the fights of the year. Yeah,
Totally.
You have 2 guys with the right heart. Neither of them has a glass chin. They're both like sitting pretty and with their. I just think we're seeing a crossing. I don't think it's even close to the end of Edson Barboza's career. I just think it's the beginning of Daniel Hooker's, and they're just meeting in the roads, and they're just going to cross over here. I got Hooker by an eke decision. It could be by soft skin. It could be by, if it stops in any way, it's going to be a weird stoppage. I just think it's going to be an ugly, grimy, stand-up fight like you're saying. I don't think anyone's going to try to take it down here.
Nope.
I think they're going to stand and fight, and this is going to be one for the ages. This is one for the hardcores. I just see it going the other way, but this is where you're also dead on. I think Edson Barboza should be the favorite. Me saying Daniel Hooker, I feel like, hey, he should be the underdog here.
So give me underdog money on the guy who should be the favorite.
Yeah, I think that Edson Barboza should be the favorite. I thought that Daniel Hooker was the underdog when I was first scrolling into the fight, and I'm like, I'm going to pick the underdog. Oh, he's the favorite. Huh, that's weird. Especially after, like you're saying, going and...
Only Khabib, and those strike stats have been skewed in takedown defense for Edson Barboza. Great takedown defense, but it was the 2 best wrestlers in Kevin Lee and Khabib.
Yeah, you're right.
That really have brought down those strike statistics for Barboza. Other than that, Barboza can think in there, did it to Dariush. He can adjust, throw flying knees from anywhere in any round.
He usually has a height and reach advantage, and he doesn't here. That's really weird. Maybe that's like...
Interesting. I'm really, really excited for this fight.
It's a great fight.
It's such a great fight. 8,200 for Daniel
These last
Hooker.
2 fights of the night are...
Totally. Last few fights.
For you, yeah, you're right.
8,000 for Edson Barboza. So this is on DraftKings.
This is a great main card. This is a great main card.
I could see myself putting either one of these fighters on there. I'm going to probably expose myself 70-80% of this fight. But like before, it's either Hooker or Barboza. I'm not going to stack this one or the other.
Speaking of offlines, let's roll into the next fight.
The main event.
Holy shit, do you see the lines on that?
I have seen the lines on that, and they are a little bit crazy. Maybe we justify them here, maybe we don't. But it is Kevin Lee versus Iaquinta 2. These guys have met before, and Iaquinta ended up beating Kevin Lee. The 13-4 Raging Iaquinta's only lost to Habib Nurmagomedov. As of late, had the 6-fight winning streak before that, beating Masvidal, Diego Sanchez, Pearson, Lozon. Had a lot of disputes with the UFC as well. So Iaquinta, to me, has always been on the shit list of the UFC, but has also bailed him out and fighting one-day notice against Habib. So what I was talking to Evil Twin about with this Iaquinta fight is that the UFC's doing Ala solid, and he probably got very unique deal out of it because he's a smart guy. He's someone who knows what his value is, and he was probably like, you're going to give me X amount of fights for X amount of dollars. And they're like, all right, well, here's Kevin Lee, a guy who beat you before. Or no, lost you before. And Al's like, all right, I'll take it. And then Al's had massive surgeries, been out for 2 years, come back and fought middling competition, where Kevin Lee is 17-3, steadily fought hard competition, only lost to Tony Ferguson in there, and is coming off of a win over Edson Barboza as of late. Really interesting stats I saw on that last fight for Edson Barboza when him and Kevin Lee and Habib both fought Edson. Habib fought Edson in a 3-rounder, Lee in a 5-rounder, but in the stats-wise, Kevin Lee, because he had more time to work, did edge out Habib overall in takedowns, ground control, and strikes. But because it was only 3 to 5 rounds, still the comparison in the fact that Kevin Lee uses his wrestling as dominantly as Habib. The thing that really throws it off is Kevin Lee will sometimes get himself in trouble by striking with strikers that doesn't need to. And he'll get himself in trouble wobbled. Saw him do the chicken dance in there a few times. And it's because he's always trying to get better at striking. But when he uses his wrestling, Kevin Lee is an American wrestler, and he does it really, really well. Throws good elbows. Learned a lot off of that Ferguson fight and really talked about it. He's since trained with Habib. I've seen some footage come out of Kevin Lee. So Kevin Lee moved to the Institute in Vegas and is definitely a big up-and-comer, where Iaquinta's been a thorn in somebody's side. He's using a lot of baseball methods, hand-eye coordination issues, and doing a lot of his own rehabilitation on his own. Really looked good as of late, but he came in to lose a 5-rounder against Habib, and everyone's like, he made it 5 rounds. Well, it was a really unique situation, and Habib wasn't trying to finish him in there. He was just trying to put on a show by jabbing him up and using his striking. Tough as nails, Al will always be moving forward, can put a good game plan together, and has power. Out of both fighters, the biggest growth I've seen out of either one is going to be Kevin Lee, and I don't think the line's off. I usually tend to say these things are overblown, and I would say maybe 2 to 1 is where I have Kevin Lee. 3 to 1 is a little steep, but I do think Kevin Lee has tightened up every one of the spots, which was usually the wrestling and cardio that Iaquinta used to get over on him when they were on the show together. I don't think that's the same Kevin Lee. I think that's a other shell. He's grown into a much bigger shell and a bigger person, much more black explosive as of late. I got Lee in a finish, TKO round number 4 or 5. You know you guys, and these guys in these later rounds also were saying, I'm trying to get the finish. Kevin Lee has a cardio. I'm going to say put money on round 4 or 5, especially if it's like plus 1,200, plus 1,600. I could see it happening. Who do you have in this fight, main event?
It's hard to get Al out of there, regardless of who you are. Even if you're Khabib, Al's one of those rugged guys, and I think the punching is where Kevin Lee's going to get himself in trouble. I think he is going to try to stand with Al, and I think he's going to get caught. If Edson Barboza can rock you the way that he did, Iaquinta can put you down. And so the thing that worries me, his last fight, Kevin Lee didn't, if it wasn't stopped, how would it have gone? It was a doctor stoppage fight. So is it like, I don't like those as wins when they're doctor stoppage from a cut. The Tony Ferguson submission, he put himself right into that trouble, and that didn't look good for me. The Mike Chiesa submission, very questionable. We think it was kind of stopped early. Mike Chiesa was doing all the right things, and that was the one that Yamasaki stopped it.
True,
so
good
then
points. When
you go into the last fights and people can argue on whether or not, he won. But I think that the submission, if he's going to try just to go in to submit Al, I think Iaquinta is going to use his wrestling in reverse to make sure that doesn't happen and stay on the feet with Kevin Lee. So I think Iaquinta is going to have okay cardio. He went 5 rounds with Khabib on short notice. So yeah, Kevin Lee, you might have been training with Khabib, but I think it's a little different than what Al has. He's the craziest underdog. This is way too much of an underdog. I have Al winning by a knockout, round 4 or 3. I'm going to move it to round 3. And I know he's a crazy underdog, but I have a lot of underdogs on today. I might as well just run with it. I think this is crazy off lines. Kevin Lee should be the favorite. I know he's done a lot since then, but a lot of those W's are questionable to me. So Iaquinta.
I love it. I love the split card. That should tell you anything. When we're split up here at LaTB, usually good stuff happens. You know you're going to be watching wherever you can. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, follow
Free
you
bets are
at Zol
coming
Tonight.
out.
Follow me at Weak Neck Baby. Follow us at Lesbo and the Bean. And thanks again for listening.
Let's go to the beat.
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.